Hello, my name is Don and welcome to the first ever tutorial on my channel. This is how to score from corners. Now I've just put a random guy in here. This is just sort of to explain the tactic. Before we do, work out who your aerial threats are. For me, in my Let's Play with Rangers, this is now my personal save, I've literally just started it. For me, in my Rangers save, it is the two centre backs, the striker. Now you might get a good aerial fullback. There's a few of them. There's some very good sort of more holding midfielders or defensive minded midfielders that are very good in the air. So just bear in mind when you're doing this, make sure you know who your aerial threats are and adjust this for your team rather than just taking what I'm saying for your team basically. So I'm just going to briefly stop the tutorial there just for a split second, and just for the sort of maybe the newer player or the less experienced player of Football Manager, I'm just going to quickly go over the sort of key stats I look for what a good player in the air is. So if we look here, this player Federico Fazio is 6'5". That's a fairly decent height. He's going to be fairly tall naturally. He's got 19 jump and reach, which is another stat that I think is very important. As you see, this attribute reflects the highest point that a player can reach with his head, often influenced by a player's height, so that's why height is so important as well. Heading, that's going to be how good their ability is to challenge for the ball in the aerial situations. Strength as well, because you want to be able to push a player off, so strength's a good one. And then mentally, I would look for concentration, decisions, composure, bravery and anticipation. These sort of combine for when the ball comes in to how they will attack the ball, and really if they're even paying attention to the ball coming in and anticipating when it gets to them, and still being able to put, and then bravery obviously and composure sort of reflects how well they'll sort of just be relaxed if they hit the ball, and anticipation, bravery will be how brave they want to put in. If another player comes in at the same time, are they going to still stick their head in? If they've got high bravery, the chances are they will. So this is Federico Fazio. He's just an example player of this. There's other players obviously. Now this guy is obviously fairly decent in the air. There's other examples. Andy Carroll was one of them. For example, for a striker, he's very good in the air. But again, make sure these stats are relevant to the league you're playing in. For example, this is like a guy that's in the Serie A would be very good in the air in Serie A. In a lower league, you might not be able to get as high a stat, but you could still have the best the best header of the ball in the league. So just make sure you're accommodating for your team and the level that it is playing at, and don't be worrying about having 18s and 19s in this, because you won't get that in the lower leagues or in a lot of leagues. We'll get into it. This is attacking corners from the right hand side. Now it works the same from both hand sides. I find try and have a player that has an outswing. What I mean by an outswing is, if you look at this line here, it gives an outward curve. So it comes away from the goal, and in-swinger would come in towards goal. I find an outswinger works a bit better. I'm not sure why, but certainly in my experience with this year's Football Manager, outswingers work better. I then have my best aerial threat to attack near post, where the ball is aimed. So you're aiming for your best aerial threat right from the off. He will attack the near post. He will score some will flick on, some he won't win. That's all fine. If he flicks it on, you have your second best aerial threat attacking the far post. You have your striker going forward, and you have another player there. Just again, for me, my attacking central midfielder isn't that tall and he isn't that good in the air. Usually I would have him further out, but I don't have a great holding mid height wise or aerial wise, so he sort of won the toss in my team. But just your third and your fourth best ones just to go forward. Ideally, that leaves you with an attacking midfielder or a playmaker of some sort, which you attack the ball from deep with. Now this is just really for recycling the ball. If it's cleared out, this will be the person that picks it up, passes it to someone else, maybe has a shot themselves, so that even when you're not scoring directly from the ball in, you're scoring from the direct next opportunity, which is the clearance. I then have another player which supports him. He will be another option to pick the ball up if it's cleared, maybe play it back in. For me, it's my holding midfielder, but again, I'd much rather have a more playmaker oriented player for it. but just the way the height and the aerial threats worked out for me, it sort of happened to be my more defensive midfielder, which I don't mind too much. I also have another player who's usually a skillful player, a sort of, maybe not a flair player, but just someone that's just going to go outside, someone that's got a decent long shot, maybe doesn't have the best long shot, but a decent long shot, and decent passing, and maybe a little bit of pace, and maybe a little bit of flair, but it doesn't have to be too much. I have him just to go short. Now this is just a logic of, it will drag someone out of the box. The same with these two players, they will drag one player out of the box, but if you can get one player to just go up and mark this player that's short, that's one less player that your aerial threats inside the box have to be in the air. And again, if the ball's cleared, he's an option for these two, because usually your corner taker will still be offside. So he becomes an option. If it clears to the flank again, he's going to pick up before your corner taker will and get back into the mixer, or maybe have a shot himself. Just recycling the ball is so important with an attacking corner. If you don't win the first ball, make sure you win the second ball. If you win the first ball, then try and win the second ball as well. That's sort of the logic with corners. And then for a big clearance that's successful, that maybe prevents a counter, that maybe has a counter attack, you have your two sort of, for me it's my two fullbacks, two quick players that are decent at defending, that aren't good in the air at all. So they're your two that I have holding back, but I'd recommend having at least two. I mean, some teams, a team that's maybe really good in the break, I'd maybe have an extra one, but again, I don't change this too often. So this has worked very successfully for me. I hope it works as successful with you. Just bearing in mind who your aerial threats are, and it should work. And make sure you've got good corner takers as well. That obviously helps. Anyway, I'm going to end this tutorial here. I hope it helps. I know there's been a few people that have issues with this situation this year, struggling to score from corners. So I hope it helps, and I hope it increases the amount of goals you score from corners, and in turn makes you a bit more of a successful club. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, a like and subscribe is always appreciated, and I'll hopefully catch you next time.